Hey guys, this is the first one we ever made, and it did so well that we're gonna go ahead and make another one. We're gonna show you from start to finish how we made a larger one that is shorter and a little bit more functional than the one we made the first time. And it's gonna be a nice little addition to our DIY backyard skate park.
Me and my dad, we decided to go to Lowe's and get enough supplies. We're gonna make our own little quarter pipe out of it.
All right, so here's the material list that we use. Go ahead and pause the video on this, write it down, whatever you need, but it really wasn't a lot. The project is very basic, no advanced tools, and the only thing you really need is an extra person to kind of sit on the panels to bow them in while you're screwing them down to the frame. Take your 3/4 sheet of plywood and go ahead and cut it in half. One piece will be the back of the actual set, and the sides will be formed out of the other half. And we also just drew the line for that by guesstimation, and you can always refine it with a belt sander later, like this. Once you get the final working version that you're satisfied with, as far as like the taper and the contour of this piece, go ahead and trace it on the other piece of plywood you cut in half there, and you'll mirror your pieces. Now let's get on to the fun part, framing. Make sure you do this on a completely flat surface. Get both pieces that you just trimmed and shaped and primed up, and this is where you start attaching the 2x3s, or if you want 2x4s. The 2x3s are doing nothing more than framing the back, bottom and top, and then all the bottom. Everything else that is actually framing the ramp is a 2x6. Those are going to be the only things that are going to be strong enough per the whole span of this 8-foot section to hold it all without starting to bow in or tweak. We're using the 2.5-inch self-tapping deck screws right through the plywood into the studs. And the 2x2s and the 1x2 are for the very bottom beginning of the ramp because nothing else will fit in that small size. I put a piece of sheet metal in the biggest bow right there, and that was to try and keep it from sinking in the middle since it's two pieces jointed on together. This process can be done without it, but I figured that's good for longevity in the future. These are the 3/8 sheets of plywood that you'll need. 3/8 is the minimum thickness I would personally use that is still able to bend on a contour like this easily with two people. One person, adding weight to it while you screw it down. Much easier to have somebody lay on the plywood or sit on the plywood to bow it to the frame. If you try to compress the plywood onto the frame with screws, the screws will just pull right through the plywood. For coping, we're simply using a galvanized piece of metal conduit pipe, and we're using the appropriate hole saw that's the exact same size as the conduit to drill the starter parts. That is where it will slide in. Once this is all secured, you'll need to get ready to cut the excess off. To do this, you'll have to bend your circular saw all the way over the tightest angle it can get, and then go right in and cut that angle. You're going to want to be cutting it at an angle because the conduit will not slide into that spot without it being at an angle. Once that's all done, frame the top in, and then go ahead and cut the 1/2-inch sheet and put it on the top. The 3/4-inch sheet or the 5/8 sheet, whatever one you used at the beginning, you should have a 2-foot section left over from the side where we created the initial sides, and you should be able to put that one on the very back. And you should only have about a 1/2 sheet of plywood left over after the entire project has been cut and prepped and set. And at this point, it's just a matter of putting in the self-tapping deck screws. Be generous with the screws, for this ramp itself will take a lot of abuse, and the more screws, the less prone to shaking apart it will be. After doing all this work, I would strongly urge you to resin coat the whole thing. For one, it'll stop the wood from splintering. It will prolong the life of this ramp tremendously, thwarting the organic deterioration of the wood that would naturally occur. I would suggest 2-part marine resin because it is naturally more flexible than the standard resin is after it all cures. And I would do 2 coats. One slow cure, deep penetrating coat, and then the top one you can do a fast cure if you want because it's already coated. That should solidify the ramp well. Let it all cure for a minimum of 48 hours and then use it.